Hello ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to this series, part 10 of What If I Reincarnated as Yamamoto Genryusai in Naruto and saved the Uzumaki clan. But guys, before we get into the video, make sure you give this one a thumbs up, subscribe to the page, and hit that naughty bell to be updated on my latest videos. With that, guys, enjoy. At that precise moment, when every individual present was enthusiastically voicing their agreement, an unexpected occurrence unfolded within the confines of the meeting room. An unprecedented space rift materialized before their eyes. Witnessing this extraordinary phenomenon, Hiruzen swiftly rose from his seat, while Sakumo and Orochimaru positioned themselves protectively in front of him. Simultaneously, the guards representing various villages assumed their positions, steadfastly prepared to defend their respective cages against any potential threats that might arise. "This is indeed a grave situation," expressed Hiruzen, his tone laced with concern. Puzzled by the gravity of the situation, Inoki inquired, "What do you mean?" Kage. With a measured voice, Hiruzen uttered a name that sent shivers down the spines of all who heard it: Kagitsuchi Uzumaki. The mere mention of Kagitsuchi's name elicited a chilling response from the assembled individuals, prompting a tangible sense of trepidation to pervade the atmosphere. Each person stood ready, their nerves tightly wound, prepared to defend themselves at a moment's notice. Finally, the enigmatic figure of Kagitsuchi emerged from the mystical breach in space, moving deliberately and purposefully towards the seat occupied by the general of the Iron Country. As Kagitsuchi locked eyes with the general, an overwhelming wave of fear washed over him, compelling the general to yield his esteemed position to Kagitsuchi, an act born out of sheer intimidation. After comfortably settling into his seat, Kagitsuchi cordially addressed the group. "It appears that you all have been engaged in an important discussion. Please take your seats, as there is truly nothing to be nervous about." Upon hearing Kagitsuchi's words, each individual dutifully sat down. However, their cautious nature prevented them from blindly accepting Kagitsuchi's reassurances, causing them to remain vigilant and alert in his presence. Once everyone had taken their seats, Kagitsuchi inquired, "Pray, tell me, what was the nature of your discussion? And what events led to the convening of this esteemed 5-cage summit?" Silence permeated the room as Kagitsuchi's question hung in the air. Yet, amidst the quietude, the third Raikage found the courage to speak. "Might it be true that you harbor intentions of capturing all the tailed beasts?" "Yes, indeed. I am meticulously devising a plan to apprehend every single tailed beast," Kagitsuchi confirmed with conviction. "Or, I should say, the wheels of this plan have already been set in motion." Although a wave of confusion washed over the assembled individuals, compelling them to seek clarity on Kagitsuchi's cryptic statement, they collectively suppressed their curiosity. In that moment, Inoki mustered the courage to pose a query. "What prompts your need to secure the tailed beasts?" There exist two rather straightforward reasons," Kagitsuchi calmly elucidated. "Firstly, due to my inherent strength, I am more than capable of wresting the tailed beasts from your grasp. Secondly, I am driven by a desire for my Uzumaki clan to reign as the most formidable force, even in my absence or demise." Thus, the room remained filled with a blend of intrigue, uncertainty, and a deepened understanding of Kagitsuchi's. "To be completely honest, I came here after receiving accurate and reliable information that all of you were gathering with the purpose of attending an important meeting. Interestingly enough, right after my intense confrontation with Madara, I had a premonition that Madara would undoubtedly spread news about me. So, it didn't come as a surprise to me that you all received the news from him," said Kagitsuchi, his words resonating deeply within the minds of all those present. "I couldn't care less about your actions or intentions, but the mere thought of you challenging me was not only unexpected, but also somewhat unacceptable. It's akin to how an elephant would feel when faced with a challenge from an ant. The elephant would undoubtedly feel a profound sense of discomfort and dismay, wouldn't it?" continued Kagitsuchi, his tone filled with a mixture of arrogance and disdain. Despite the humiliation each cage felt upon being compared to an insignificant ant, none of them dared to display any form of dissatisfaction. They understood all too well that expressing their discontent could result in instantaneous death at the hands of Kagitsuchi, who possessed formidable power. "Consequently, I have taken it upon myself to make a specific announcement today. I hereby declare war on all of you, and I offer you the liberty to choose any battlefield you desire. However, be forewarned that if any harm comes to my clan members, you shall undoubtedly face severe consequences. Furthermore, let it be known that on this battlefield, a strict rule shall be enforced. No major village is to engage in attacks against each other's villages until the battle reaches its conclusive end," declared Kagitsuchi, his fiery ryutsu radiating an intense heat that permeated the entire room. The sheer temperature alone had the potential to incinerate nearly everything within its vicinity. With conviction, the third Raikage stood up and voiced his agreement, stating, I wholeheartedly support this rule. Following the Reikage's endorsement, the remaining Kages also voiced their support for the rule set forth by Kagitsuchi, acknowledging its necessity in these trying times. After much deliberation, it was decided that the battle would take place precisely 1 week later, allowing ample time for preparation and strategizing. As the meeting drew to a close, Kagitsuchi rose from his seat, exclaiming, "I challenge you all to surprise me in the impending battle, for I eagerly await your futile attempts to outwit me." With those final words, he tapped his crutch in the air, causing the atmosphere to ripple like water. Suddenly, a rift in the fabric of space materialized before him, and with a confident stride, Kagitsuchi stepped into the rift, disappearing from the Iron Country, and leaving behind an air of anticipation and uncertainty. All the Kages there breathed a sigh of relief as soon as Kagitsuchi left the conference room. The air seemed to relax, giving the worn-out leaders a temporary break from the tension. After standing since Kagitsuchi's entrance, the general of the Iron Country finally gave in and slumped onto a separate chair. He was unable to take Kagitsuchi's previous position because of the weight of fear that had been hanging over him. Just then, a soldier snuck up behind the general and leaned in to sneak a private word into his ear. The general nodded in agreement as though the soldier's remarks had touched a nerve inside of him. He made a purposeful but quiet movement to clear his throat in an effort to get everyone in the room to pay attention. "There are members of Ambu from each village who deliver news from the Uzumaki country," he said, addressing the audience in an assertive manner. Quick to react, the Reikage immediately said, "Bring them in," without delay. The soldier quickly left the room in response to the Reikage's order, only to return a short while later with the Ambu members. Each Ambu agent entered the Kage's chamber with an attitude of the utmost respect. While wearing their distinguishing outfit, each Ambu agent had a whispered conversation with their superior, a communication that served as a measure of trust and truthfulness. They weren't given permission to proceed until their identities and loyalty were established. The Kages looked at one another as their expressions changed in response to the news. "What are the plans of Uzumaki country?" the Reikage asked, breaking the stillness. Inoki's statement, "Yeah, that doesn't align with the direction of any big villages," showed how perplexed the Kages were. Everyone in attendance was perplexed. At this point, Orochimaru moved close and spoke to Hiruzen. "You appear to be forgetting something, Sensei. The major villages do not hold all of the tailed beasts." Everyone in the room was moved by Orochimaru's comments, and a sudden insight hit them all. Tsukigaka was pronounced by the Kages almost simultaneously. The third Kazekage commented, "It appears that Uzumaki Kagitsuchi is training his clan members instead of joining them. They must be seeking to catch the seven-tailed beast. What should we do?" the Mizukage asked, his voice filled with confusion. The third Reikage firmly said, "Nothing should be done. We just don't have the luxury of diverting our attention away from the impending conflict with Kagitsuchi." His remarks exuded determination and urgency. The Kage reached a unanimous decision. Each leader recognized the validity of the Reikage's point of view, seeing the critical need of devoting all of their efforts toward battling Kagitsuchi, rather than being involved in extraneous things. "As I previously stated, I am confident in my capacity to defeat Kagitsuchi, if we can somehow contain him," Inoki, the Tsukigage, remarked. Despite the difficulties they were facing, his tone was upbeat. The Reikage responded with a reasonable concern, saying, "While your confidence is commendable, have you not noticed his mastery of space-time ninjutsu, which allows him to travel long distances with ease? The most difficult challenge we must overcome is restraint." His statements were realistic and unsettling. This remark seemed to increase Inoki's rage, prompting him to react forcefully. "Do you have a superior answer, then?" His speech was filled with rage and defiance. Hiruzen, the Hokage, stepped in to try to calm the situation down. "Rather than indulging in pointless debates, we should rely on our village ninjas and speak with our village clans. We can create a comprehensive plan if we work together. Let's get together in 2 days to complete our strategy." His words were loaded with knowledge and diplomacy. The Kage nodded in response, convinced by Hiruzen's diplomatic approach. Inoki took a dramatic step, rising from his chair and declaring, "Today's 5-Kage summit has come to an end. We will reassemble in this room in 2 days to choose the best terrain for our combat with Kagitsuchi on that day." Every Kage present nodded silently, the weight of their obligations obvious in their eyes. They departed the conference room one by one, bidding farewell to the Iron Country, and beginning their respective journeys back to their villages. Finally, the next morning in Konoha, Hiruzen sat with the heads of various clans and some elite jonin inside the Hokage's office. Everyone had a scroll that contained all of the information from the 5-Kage summit. "I would like to hear your opinions on this matter," Hiruzen said after everyone had finished reading. Nara Shinichi stood up and spoke his mind, saying, "Given Mito immense Sana's power, it shouldn't be impossible to temporarily restrain Uzumaki Kagitsuchi. If all of the Kage unleash their most powerful attacks within that time frame, there is a good chance of inflicting significant damage on Uzumaki Kagitsuchi. Tsunade stood up and announced something on behalf of her grandmother. All eyes were drawn to Tsunade, eager to hear what she had to say on Mito's behalf. My grandmother expressed her dissatisfaction with the darkness that has descended on our village. She lacks the will and courage to confront her uncle for a dark village where everywhere there is politics. As a result, she will not take part in the battle against her uncle. This decision, however, only applies to her and not to the entire Senju clan. The Senju clan will take an active role in the battle. Tsunade's identity was revealed. The room fell silent as everyone absorbed Tsunade's words, reflecting on the significance of Mito's decision. Hiruzen wasn't taken aback by this decision. He had anticipated it. He had seen it coming, and although the reason given was blunt, he had already suspected that Mito would refuse to fight Kagitsuchi. Nodding, Hiruzen said, "We understand. Inform her that she won't need to battle her uncle." Tsunade settled back into her seat upon hearing the response. Koharu interjected, "But if the Nine-Tails Jinchuriki doesn't participate, we will already be at a disadvantage from the beginning. No need for further discussion. We cannot afford any internal conflicts at this point," declared Hiruzen. "Since we now know that Mito-sama will not participate, we must plan accordingly," added Hiruzen. Subsequently, a series of debates ensued to determine the strategy, taking into account the actions of other villages. Every move was carefully considered as they prepared to fight Kagitsuchi as an alliance. Simultaneously, discussions were underway in all the major villages, including Takigakure. "Takigakure-sama, the Uzumaki clan is moving towards our village and will likely arrive soon," informed one of the ninjas standing before the Takigakure, a man in his 50s, who currently held the position of Takigakure in Takigakure. "But what could they want from us? Have you discovered anything?" Takigakure pondered deeply. The ninjas in the room went into deep thought and silence ruled. However, the sound of a knock on the door soon broke the silence. A ninja entered the Takigikure's office and announced, "Takigakure-sama, a ninja from the Uzumaki clan, has expressed the clan head's desire to meet with you." Takigakure nodded and inquired, "Is our army prepared?" "Yes, Takigakure-sama. The army is ready, and we stand prepared to engage at a moment's notice," replied one of the ninjas, who appeared to be a Junin of Takigakure. Takigakure nodded and instructed the newly arrived ninja, "Go and inform them that I am willing to meet the head of the Uzumaki clan. However, he must come alone and unarmed. Similarly, I will stand before our respective village armies, maintaining a safe distance." The ninja nodded and departed to carry out the given instructions. Quite a significant distance away from Takigakure, situated in a remote location where the esteemed higher-ups of the Uzumaki clan had assembled, one of the elders respectfully addressed Fuso, the esteemed clan head. "Clan head, may I inquire as to what we are awaiting? Why don't we initiate an assault on Takigakure and capture the formidable Seven-Tails?" To this, Fuso calmly responded, "No, if it is possible to handle the situation peacefully, there is no need to resort to force." However, the elder persisted, eager to express their viewpoint. Before they could continue, Fuso interrupted, emphasizing, "Although we have been entrusted by Grand Uncle to refine our skills, it does not necessarily imply that we must engage in battle. Opportunities to enhance our abilities will arise countless times, and this sentiment is not exclusive to me, but shared by respected Grand Uncle." The elders and other dissenting members, harboring dissatisfaction with Fuso's initial pursuit of a peaceful resolution, reluctantly remained silent, adhering to Kagitsuchi's final decision. An hour later, two imposing armies stood face to face, their warriors poised for confrontation. Taking the forefront with Fuso, the indomitable Uzumaki clan head, and Hisoka, the esteemed Takigakure of Takigakure. Curiosity piqued, Hisoka initiated the conversation, inquiring, "What has brought the Uzumaki clan members here, accompanied by their formidable army?" "I failed to discern any transgression on Takigakare's part that would warrant such an assertive stance." In response, Fuso composedly stated, "Your esteemed village possesses something that the Uzumaki clan requires. Should you be willing to relinquish it, we shall depart without causing any harm." Hisoka, maintaining a resolute expression, responded with unwavering determination, "You came seeking the coveted holy water, did you not? However, we shall never yield it to you. Instead, we shall confront you fiercely, prepared to fight until our last breath." Fuso, shaking his head disappointingly, elucidated, "I acknowledge the potent effects of the holy water, yet its adverse side effects render it akin to poison. Hence, we did not venture here seeking that elixir. We specifically arrived for the Seven-Tails. Should you choose to surrender it, we shall depart peacefully. However, should you resist, the consequences will rest solely on your shoulders." As Fuso's authoritative voice echoed, his chakra erupted, radiating an intense energy. Following suit, his father Mitsuo unleashed his own formidable chakra to its fullest potential, triggering a chain reaction throughout the Uzumaki clan's ranks. Each and every Jonin, imbued with determination, released their chakra simultaneously, resulting in a palpably tense atmosphere. Observing this display of power, Hisoka couldn't help but be drenched in a cold sweat. He could discern the strength possessed by 2 Kage-level warriors and over 50 battle-hardened Jonins, while within his village, he stood as an esteemed elite jonin with a modest group of approximately 20 comrades. The realization dawned upon him that victory was improbable, but he couldn't fathom allowing a foreign adversary to invade their village and seize the coveted tailed beast. Thus, Hisoka reached a resolute decision. I categorically reject your proposition. We shall never relinquish the seven-tailed beast, and shall valiantly fight until our last breath, declared the unwavering Takigakure. With a solemn nod, Fuso acknowledged Hisoka's response, uttering the words, "As you wish." With that, both leaders returned to their respective armies, preparing for the imminent clash that would determine the fate of Takigakure and the Uzumaki clan's ultimate objective. When Hisoka returned to the camp, he addressed his comrades, saying, "You must have heard the intentions of the Uzumaki clan. Do any of you believe that my decision was erroneous?" "No, Takigakure-sama. You made the right choice, and we stand prepared to fight until our last breath," responded one of the jonins. Witnessing the unwavering support from his fellow warriors, Hisoka nodded in appreciation. With a resolute expression, Hisoka retrieved a bottle filled with water and proclaimed, "This is our village's only hope." He proceeded to divide the water into 20 small flasks, and distributed them among the jonins of Takigakure, stating, "For the future of our village." Grasping the flasks firmly, the jonins nodded, their determination shining brightly. Fuso said, "It appears that we are destined to engage in battle with them, and so be it." After going back to where the Uzumaki army was stationed, he turned to the elders and declared, with conviction in his voice, "Let's split up our powerful army into 4 sections. I'll be in charge of the first section, and the respected elders will be in charge of the other 3. Additionally, the 3rd and 2nd armies of our troops will combine with the 4th section of our forces, which will tactically assemble behind Takigakure. By using this tactical plan, we can guarantee that no Takigakure ninja will be able to escape our grasp." Fuso drew them in and firmly said, should our foes choose to engage, they must be ready to pay a huge price. The warriors present nodded in agreement and recognition as his words rang forth. Fuso looked at his father with curiosity and asked, "Father, are you really positive that you won't need additional teams to capture the Seven Tails?" Mitsuo answered with a confident tone, "No, my son, there is no need. Kushina, a few skilled Uzumaki jonins, and I have the skills required to capture the Seven Tails." It's also important to note that this war is being fought with the participation of the entire Takigakure ninja army. Even if Kushina set out on this errand by herself, she would definitely infiltrate Takigakure and leave without running into any difficulties. But she would find that capturing the seven-tailed beast was an impossible feat. Therefore, it is my responsibility to carry out this project. You just focus on your own fight while I take care of the Seven Tails. Following that, Mitsuo gathered Kushina and their dedicated team, embarking on their mission to capture the Seven Tails. In the meantime, Fuso, commander of the Uzumaki army, launched a ferocious attack on Takigakare's forefront, the Takiguchi's home territory. In accordance with their predetermined strategy, a section of their men stood steadfastly by Fuso's side to serve as a defense, while the remaining soldiers expertly dispersed to launch simultaneous attacks on Takigakure from the left and right flanks. The Uzumaki ninjas presented a mesmerizing picture to keen onlookers who fixed their focus on them. A group of ninjas moving steadily forward with purposeful movements, all in an effort to get to the Takigakure's rear. Here, in the heart of the battlefield, the overwhelming dominance of the Uzumaki ninjas becomes strikingly evident. It was an absolute massacre, where the Uzumaki clan members showcased not only their formidable sealing abilities, but also their unparalleled physical strength. And if these extraordinary traits weren't enough, each Uzumaki ninja carried an abundance of explosive tags. Even the mere deployment of these explosive tags alone would suffice to utterly decimate the opposing ninjas from Takigakure. Fuso started a merciless killing spree in the midst of this chaotic show, slaughtering Chunin and Genin with unrestrained violence. With each ferocious punch, his engulfed in flames, fists dealt fatal blows, leaving a trail of crumpled Chunin and Genin in his wake. To everyone's surprise, his adamantine sealing chains showed a strange sentience, slithering through the air as if they had their own eyes, and easily entangling and strangling unwary ninjas within their grasp, sealing their fates with unshakable finality. Takigakure was one of the spectators of this incredible exhibition of strength, and when he saw how pointless it would be to fight Fuso, he became aware of his own inadequacies in this dangerous situation. Takigakure turned to the holy water in a last-ditch effort to change the course of events, taking a firm hold of it and downing it in one determined swallow. The holy water he drank caused such an incredible chakra surge that the ground underneath him shook and cracked. Takigakure hurried towards Fuso after realizing that time was a valuable resource that he could not afford to waste. He was motivated by an unshakable will to face his foe head-on. Fuso was aware of this burst of chakra, which caused him to quickly whirl around and strike Takigakure with a powerful fist. Both combatants momentarily backed away as the earth under them cracked as a result of their fists colliding. Fuso saw a chance, so he summoned several fireballs and shot them at Takigakure. The Takiguchi's use of chakra was similar to Hyuga clan's revolving heaven technique, which allowed him to effectively defend himself from the attack. It was not that Takigakure lacked knowledge of ninjutsu, quite the contrary. He excelled in water-style ninjutsu. However, if his chakra could serve as a defense and safeguard him against ninjutsu attacks, then why waste time with evasive tactics? With this in mind, Takigakure charged at Fuso, effortlessly deflecting each fireball with his bare hand. Closing in on Fuso, he unleashed a powerful punch to Fuso's chest. To his surprise, Fuso neither dodged nor defended against the blow, but allowed it to connect. For a fleeting moment, doubt crept into Takiguchi's mind regarding the wisdom of Uzumaki clan's leader. However, his doubt swiftly vanished when his fist struck Fuso, resulting in that specific area of Fuso's body being engulfed in flames, and his fist went through. Witnessing this unexpected turn of events, Takiguchi was left in a state of shock. Initially, he contemplated the possibility of an illusion, but then he realized that his chakra's manic state rendered him immune to such deceptions. His questions were soon answered as Fuso retaliated, delivering a powerful punch that sent Takiguchi hurtling backward. Not only that, but Fuso also pursued him relentlessly, with several adamantine chains emerging from his body, attempting to ensnare Takiguchi. Aware of the dire consequences of falling into Fuso's clutches, Takiguchi resolved to avoid being captured at all costs. Fuso and Takiguchi's intense battle raged on for another 10 torturous minutes. Takiguchi's breaths became heavier, indicating his increasing exhaustion, while the once formidable chakra coat enveloping him faded away. The obvious signs were clear. The potent hero water's effects were wearing off. Fuso, on the other hand, remained unaffected, with the stamina and determination to fight at full speed for at least another hour. Takiguchi's expression revealed a deep sense of regret as he faced Fuso. It was caused not only by his failure to defeat his opponent, but also by the grim realization that victory for Takigakure was now nearly impossible. Takiguchi witnessed Takigakare's forces being encircled by members of the formidable Uzumaki clan, whose ruthless efficiency in killing Takigakure ninjas left no doubt about their superiority. When he decided to engage in combat with the formidable Uzumaki clan, he expected to be able to inflict some damage alongside the village's skilled jonin. Despite their consumption of the potent hero water, none of the jonin who drank it were able to defeat their Uzumaki opponents. Even with the increased chakra levels obtained from the hero water, they were still inferior to the Uzumaki family members in every way, as the latter possessed an even greater abundance of chakra. While Takiguchi was contemplating this disheartening reality, he was abruptly interrupted by an audible boom emanating from within the village. Not only did the resounding boom reach his ears, but it was accompanied by the mighty Seven-Tails' reverberating roar. "So you sent your father to find the Seven-Tails. That explains why I didn't see him on the battlefield. However, I'm perplexed as to how you found the Seven-Tails, given that it's been sealed and no perception technique can find it," Takiguchi inquired, his bewilderment evident. "In the presence of the Uzumaki clan, you're discussing sealing," Fuso remarked, shaking his head. He then continued speaking, "Let's bring this battle to an end. You're also nearing your limits." "You're correct. I'm reaching my limit, but I refuse to surrender. Prepare yourself for my ultimate attack," Takiguchi declared resolutely, his voice filled with determination. Embarking upon a sequence of hand seals, ram''horse''bird, subsequently unleashing his ninjutsu, the water release, tornado of water. And since this particular ninjutsu encompassed nearly every ounce of Takiguchi's chakra, the resulting water tornado grew immensely in size and surged towards Fuso. On the opposing side, Fuso refused to be outshone and swiftly performed hand seals, invoking the power of fire release. Fire tornado. Consequently, 2 colossal tornadoes materialized, one blazing with the intensity of fire, and the other surging with water. Despite water's innate advantage in suppressing fire, Fuso's mastery of fire nature chakra, greatly augmented by Kagitsuchi's aid, elevated the temperature of his fire release to unprecedented levels. Consequently, the water tornado struggled to quell the ferocious might of the fire tornado, leading to the continuous evaporation of water from the watery cyclone. Gradually, the ninjutsu dissipated, and as it faded away, Takiguchi gradually descended to the ground. His entire body lacked any trace of chakra, and even his breath began to slow its rhythm. The side effects took hold, signaling Takiguchi's impending demise. He knew that the chakra boost he had obtained had come at the cost of his life force. Takiguchi addressed Fuso in a weak voice, saying, "Please let my village go. Had you heeded our advice earlier, we never intended to bring ruin upon your village," Fuso responded. Takiguchi found solace in his final moments after hearing Fuso's words, and he died peacefully. For the next 15 minutes, the battle raged on until not a single Takigakure ninja remained alive on the battlefield. Fuso found solace in the tranquility as the noise from Takigakure village gradually faded. "It appears that a father has successfully apprehended the Seven-Tails," he murmured under his breath. Following the war conclusion, the Uzumaki clan diligently assessed their casualties, and began the laborious task of organizing the remnants scattered across the battlefield. Finally, Fuso occupied the largest tent in a makeshift campsite erected by Uzumaki clan members. At that precise moment, a respected elder approached him and said, "Fortunately, no members of the Uzumaki clan have died. However, as civilian ninjas, whom we had trained, met a tragic end. Approximately 30 people were killed in the battle, and another 40 were severely injured. Even if they survive, their dreams of a lifelong ninja journey are crushed." Fuso acknowledged the statement and expressed, "The outcomes are indeed impressive, and the families of the deceased ninjas will receive a substantial pension. Moreover, if their children show potential to become ninjas, their pension will be further augmented." The elder affirmed this, noting that the decision had been made prior to the war. At that moment, Mitsuo and Kushina, accompanied by their team, entered the camp. Mitsuo held a pot in his hands as Fuso stood up to welcome his father, remarking, "It appears that the capture went smoothly. Congratulations, father." Mitsuo acknowledged the remark and responded, "Although it presented difficulties, we were ultimately successful in capturing it." Fuso nodded and turned to the elder, stating, "Our objectives here have been accomplished. We will rest here for the night and depart promptly tomorrow morning." Having heard Fuso's words, the elder nodded and exited the tent to make the necessary preparations. The army of the Uzumaki clan joyfully made their way into the Uzumaki country after 2 days, where they were warmly welcomed by the enthusiastic members of the Uzumaki country. As they set foot on the land, the soldiers wore genuine smiles on their faces, exuding excitement and anticipation. The people of the Uzumaki country eagerly extended their greetings, filled with joy and gratitude for the arrival of their clan's army. In the Yuzashiokuji building, Kagitsuchi sat in the main seat of the meeting room with his eyes closed. At that moment, Mitsuo entered the office with Fuso and others and approached Kagitsuchi. Mitsuo placed a pot on the table in front of Kagitsuchi and said, "Uncle, in this pot, the 7 tails is sealed, which we have captured." Kagitsuchi opened his eyes, looked at everyone, nodded, and said, "It's good to see you all back, including the Uzumaki clan members who have returned alive. As for the civilians who lost their lives, we will create a memorial for them. A memorial stone will be erected bearing their names and achievements. It won't be limited to them alone, but also to those who contributed to the prosperity of Yuzashiokuka before their passing." "That's an excellent proposal, Grand Uncle. I will definitely implement it. The memorial stone will not only honor those who fought for Yuzashiokuka, but also those who contributed to its growth. It will be an honor for them and their families for generations to come, inspiring creativity and leading a Uzumaki clan to prosper," said Fuso. Then Mitsuo stepped forward and asked, "Should we seal the 7 tails in a Uzumaki clan member trained for it?" Kagitsuchi shook his head and replied, "No. First, I need to make sure these tailed beasts understand the consequences of disobeying the orders of their hosts. The best way to do that is to make them feel pain. What I need is a perfect Jinchuriki, not a flawed piece where the tailed beasts rebel from time to time, causing losses. The tailed beasts must cooperate perfectly with the Jinchuriki. As a member of the Uzumaki clan, the Jinchuriki will be specially trained to be a perfect host capable of handling them. We will then have 9 cage-level powerhouses, even stronger than the average cage-level powerhouse," explained Kagitsuchi. After saying that, Kagitsuchi picked up the pot in which the 7 tails was captured, used Shunpo to leave the Yuzashiokuji building, and finally departed from Yuzashiokuka. After traveling quite far, he reached a remote corner of the Uzumaki country, where he unsealed the pot and released the 7 tails. As soon as the seal was undone, the 7 tails emerged from the pot, returning to its massive size, and let out a loud roar. Kagitsuchi was able to sense frustration and unwillingness in the 7 tails, but he calmly said, "Quiet down." 9 formidable adamantine chains emerged from his very being as a result of his words. The kunai-like pointed tips of these adamantine sealing chains impaled every feather, body part, and sinew of the 7 tails, firmly fastening it to the ground. The 7 tails yearned to be free, but its efforts were futile, because the adamantine sealing chain restrained even its own morph, preventing any movement. "Now that you are quiet, I will tell you that you have been captured by the Uzumaki clan to be sealed inside a Jinchuriki's body, further increasing the strength of Yuzashiokuka. You have 2 choices. Either you become companions with the Jinchuriki and live a good life where both of you are respected by the members of Yuzashiokuka, or I will destroy your consciousness, leaving you as a core of chakra that can be used by the Jinchuriki as they see fit," said Kagitsuchi calmly. To allow the 7 tails to speak, Kagitsuchi removed the adamantine chain from its mouth. "Never. Even if you kill me, I will be reborn again. You can't threaten me," said the 7 tails as soon as it was able to speak. "Your confidence comes from the Sage of 6 Paths, correct?" said Kagitsuchi. As soon as his voice fell, the 7-tailed beast was shocked and asked, "How do you know this?" "I know many things that you can't even imagine," said Kagitsuchi. "I wanted to make things easier for you. But if you don't want that, so be it," said Kagitsuchi, while tightly tying up the 7 tails. He then stood in front of it, and tapped the tip of his crutch on the head of the 7 tails. As soon as Kagitsuchi's crutch touched the 7 tails' head, nothing happened, and the 7 tails felt disdainful towards Kagitsuchi, thinking all talk and nothing happens. But within seconds, its whole body was engulfed in flames, directly affecting its soul. The pain was unimaginable to the point where the Seven-Tails couldn't even speak. You will endure this torture for the next 24 hours. This will show you that I have the capability to strip you of your consciousness. If even after this you refuse to surrender to Yuzashiogaku, then you know the consequences, Kagitsuchi said, after which he sealed the Seven-Tails back into the sealing pot. After returning the Seven-Tails to its seal, Kagitsuchi made his way back to the Yuzashiokaku building and handed the pot back to Mitsuo. He advised, take good care of this and prepare the other pots as well. I'll need them for tomorrow's battle. Mitsuo nodded, wanting to say something to convince Kagitsuchi not to participate in the battle alone, but he stopped himself. He knew that no matter what he said, Kagitsuchi wouldn't listen. Just then, one of the Yuzashiokaku's guards entered the meeting room and bowed to everyone. He announced a ninja from Kurigaka has arrived and delivered this scroll, stating it's for the fire god. Bring it here, Kagitsuchi commanded. The guard swiftly handed the scroll to Kagitsuchi. Kagitsuchi opened the scroll and read its contents. After finishing, he passed it on to Mitsuo, who also read it. Mitsuo remarked, so they've chosen a desolate area between Kumogaka, Owagaka, and Sunagaka as their battlefield. While I don't wish to escalate the bloodshed, as it may breed lasting animosity, it's necessary for the future. We must demonstrate the consequences if anyone dares to defy Yuzashiogaku, Kagitsuchi stated calmly. Let's see just how much trouble they can cause me, Kagitsuchi added with a smile. At this time, in the Shinobi Alliance camp, in the largest tent where all the Kages were sitting together, Reikage said, we have received news that the Uzumaki clan has captured the Seven-Tails. Hokage, to reach Takigakure, they have to pass through the fire country. However, Konoha, didn't stop the Uzumaki clan. As I mentioned before, the one who has had the most dealings with Kagitsuchi is Konoha. We know that if we had stopped the advancement of the Uzumaki army, Kagitsuchi would have arrived in an instant. I have no shame in admitting that Konoha alone can't stop Kagitsuchi, replied Sarutobi Hiruzen. We should stop these pointless discussions. We and Konoha have formulated some battle plans that we would like to share with all of you, said Hiruzen, turning towards Nara Shinichi. Nara Shinichi nodded and stepped forward, saying, time is of the essence here, so I will get straight to the point. First, I will talk about the strong points of each Kage and their village. Reikage excels in close combat, Tsuchikage is best at long-range attacks, Mizukage is skilled in swordsmanship for close quarters, Kazakage is proficient in long-range attacks, and Hokage is skilled in long-range attacks, and can also fight in close quarters with his summon, Enma. And one thing that is clear is that the main role in this battle falls on the Kages of the major villages and S-rank ninjas. So we should focus on this only, continued Nara Shinichi. Now, let's discuss the different abilities that Uzumaki Kagitsuchi possesses, and how we can counter them. First, his close combat prowess. He is not only skilled in swordsmanship, but he has also effortlessly defeated Haddock Tsukumo. I don't need to tell you how powerful Tsukumo-senpai's swordsmanship is. Secondly, even after being over 100 years old, Uzumaki Kagitsuchi has the strength to destroy a meteor with his fist. Therefore, I suggest that Reikage, Haddock Tsukumo, and Mizukage engage Kagitsuchi in close quarters, and Hokage will join in close combat if he sees an opportunity. The other Kages will provide assistance with their long-range attacks from behind, said Nara Shinichi. This proposal is good, but the biggest problem is his fire. The temperature of the fire he releases is very high, said the third Reikage. Yes, I was going to come to that. Kurigaka is skilled in water ninjutsu, and Sunagaka excels in wind release ninjutsu. If we combine water release ninjutsu and wind release ninjutsu, we can create a large area of ice. The ninjas from Owagaka can form an earth wall barrier, which will shield other ninjas from being affected, said Nara Shinichi. This is a good strategy, but it will only be enough to hold him back for a few moments. We can't defeat Kagitsuchi, said Inoki. Yes, you are right. However, this is the time that the Nara clan needs. When you are able to hold him back, we will be able to bind him with our clan's jutsu, and Tsuchikage will use this opportunity to launch his dust release on Kagitsuchi to finish him off, said Nara Shinichi. A good plan indeed. We can follow this. I agree with this plan, said the third Reikage. I have no objections either, said the Mizukage. I agree too, said the Kazakage. Everyone agreed to the plan proposed by Nara Shinichi. Lastly, I would like to request that if we can use the Jinchuriki in the battle, it would be for the best. I know that most of you are considering protecting your respective Jinchuriki by keeping them sealed in a safe place. However, I must remind you that if Kagitsuchi wins, even if we hide the Jinchuriki at the end of the world, he will find them. So, what we need to focus on is fighting Kagitsuchi with all our strength, and having the Jinchuriki will boost our strength even further. said Nara Shinichi. That reminds me, where is Senju Mito? Shouldn't she be here? Asked the Reikage. She will not be taking part in the battle. As you know, she fought Kagitsuchi in the past, and Kagitsuchi sealed the Nine-Tailed Soul, preventing Mito-sama from fighting for her life again. We decided to keep this a secret at the time for obvious reasons, said Nara Shinichi, as this was the best explanation they could come up with for Mito's absence. They can't say Mito won't fight because of village politics. The other Kages nodded after hearing this, and they believed the reason given by Konoha was reasonable. It is understandable that no village can reveal its weaknesses. However, some Kages, like Inoki and the third Reikage, regretted not attacking Konoha. They believed that such an attack would have at least resulted in gaining a significant amount of resources for their villages. As you mentioned the Jinchuriki, currently, no village has a perfect Jinchuriki. If we were to bring the Jinchuriki to the battlefield, there is a high chance that they would go berserk and harm our own village ninjas. Instead of being helpful, they would become a nuisance, so it is best to seal them, said Inoki. Yes, I agree. Utilizing Jinchuriki or tailed beasts would do us more harm than good, Reikage concurred with Inoki. After every Kage rejected the proposal, Nara Shinichi wasn't disappointed as this was also within his calculations. He stated this mainly so that no other village could claim that Konoha didn't utilize its Jinchuriki in the battle. Following that, the positioning of the army was discussed and the meeting concluded. Each Kage returned to their tent with heavy hearts, knowing that they might not survive tomorrow, or that many of their village ninjas would die. The whole world was anxiously awaiting the outcome of this war, as it would determine the future of the ninja world. The direction in which the ninja world moved depended on the result of this battle. The next day, at noon, the entire Shinobi Alliance army was prepared for battle, and the Kages stood at the front ready and waiting for the arrival of Kagitsuchi. They had been waiting since morning. At the peak of noon, the clear sky suddenly changed, becoming cloudy with thunder rumbling. A tear in the space opened up, and a pillar of flame descended from the sky, connecting with the ground. Standing within the pillar of flame was Kagitsuchi. Slowly, the space rift closed. Surrounded by ninjas from all major villages, Kagitsuchi spoke. It seems that you have prepared well for this battle. Let me test how ready you truly are. As Kagitsuchi's voice faded, the fire pillar began to shrink vertically while expanding horizontally. From a distance, it appeared as if a large pillar was falling, and the fire spreading horizontally resembled a wave of fire traveling towards the Shinobi Alliance. The height of the fire wave was almost 3 meters tall. Immediately use a combination of water and wind, a voice resonated in the minds of all the Jonins, leading the teams for the combined attack. It was clearly the work of the Yamanaka clan members. Upon receiving the order, the Jonins quickly commanded, use combination ninjutsu and demonstrate to the fire god that fire can be defeated by water, or even ice if necessary. Orders like these echoed throughout the battlefield, and the ninjas from Kurigaka and Sunagaka, who were already prepared, immediately employed water release and cooled the water with wind release. Finally, when the fire wave and the chilled water wave collided, a massive amount of water vapor was released, covering almost the entire battlefield. This continued for nearly a minute before both the water and fire waves dissipated. As the chief commander said, "This man is truly a one-man army," said one of the ninjas. "Yeah, we are mere support. The real battle force is the Kage of all the villages," added another. Having witnessed just a random attack from Kagitsuchi, the allied Shinobi army was forced to cooperate in order to counter it. The Kages nodded to each other and launched their attack on Kagitsuchi. In a meticulously orchestrated plan, the third Reikage launched the initial assault, cloaking himself in crackling lightning. His lightning release chakra mode granted him incredible speed, yet Kagitsuchi effortlessly countered every strike with remarkable ease. Sensing the need for reinforcement, Tsukumo swiftly entered the fray, his sword slicing through the air toward Kagitsuchi with deadly precision. Kagitsuchi deftly parried Tsukumo's onslaught, their weapons clashing in a display of raw power. Though the crushing Kagitsuchi's grip remained unscathed, the ground beneath them trembled and cracked, testament to the immense force unleashed by their clash. Seizing this opportune moment, the Reikage redoubled his assault, his punches aimed true. However, with each strike, instead of landing on Kagitsuchi, Reikage experienced an excruciating pain reverberating through his own body. Kagitsuchi's masterful technique was unveiled. He infused his fingertips with Ryatsu. Each time Kagitsuchi deflected the Reikage's attacks, he retaliated with precision, his fingers grazing Reikage's form. The slightest contact caused injuries that pierced through the lightning release chakra mode's regenerative capabilities. The Reikage's body, although healing rapidly, was inundated with the agonizing sensation of each wound inflicted by Kagitsuchi's deceptively simple fingertips. As the battle raged on, another element gnawed at the Reikage's spirit, intensifying his pain. He had grand ambitions of demonstrating to the world his body's impregnability, and why his body is known as the strongest shield. Kagitsuchi, on the other hand, effortlessly breached his defenses, puncturing his formidable physique with his ordinary-looking fingers. The humiliation coursing through the Reikage's veins overtook the physical pain. "You have the audacity to be so absent-minded in my presence, especially while engaged in combat with me," Kagitsuchi mocked, his voice tinged with amusement and contempt. With those taunting words, he seizes the opportunity to deliver a pinpoint strike, his clenched fist slamming into the Reikage's stomach with ferocious force. The Reikage convulsed as a spray of blood erupted from his mouth as his body was propelled backward, airborne for a brief moment before crashing to the ground. The battlefield echoed with the collective gasps of onlookers, witnessing the once invincible Reikage crumple before their eyes, specifically ninjas from Kumogaka. Although Reikage was sent flying, the rest of the Kages did not stop to check on him, because they were in combat and couldn't afford to lose their rhythm. Hiruzen sprang into action after Kagitsuchi's powerful punch knocked the Reikage to the ground. He quickly extended his adamantine staff from the side and struck Kagitsuchi from behind, catching him off guard. Kagitsuchi, on the other hand, quickly regained his composure, using Shunpo to vanish from Hiruzen's attack, and reappeared beside him, fist clenched and poised to strike. Reacting with lightning speed, Hiruzen instinctively increased the size of the adamantine staff, holding it steadfastly in front of him as a defensive measure. With a thunderous impact, Kagitsuchi's fist collided with the staff, sending shockwaves through the air. Though the adamantine staff managed to withstand the force of Kagitsuchi's blow, a few hairline cracks appeared on its previously unblemished surface. Despite the staff's fortitude, the sheer magnitude of Kagitsuchi's attack proved overwhelming. Hiruzen was propelled backward, his body soaring through the air, like a kite caught in a strong gust. The force of the impact rattled his bones and temporarily disoriented him. Hiruzen surveyed the damage done to his trusted adamantine staff as he struggled to regain his composure. The few cracks that marred its once impenetrable form served as a stark reminder of his opponent's formidable strength. "Enma, are you okay?" Hiruzen inquired. During the intense battle, the Kazekage noticed that two fellow Kages had been knocked out, so he decided to attack Kagitsuchi until they were healed. He quickly performed his signature move, the Iron Sand Gathering Assault. He shaped the Iron Sand into formidable high-density constructs, poised to strike his opponent, Kagitsuchi, with masterful control. However, Kagitsuchi, ever vigilant, anticipated the Kazekage's move. Reacting with remarkable speed, he used Had number 4, known as Byakurai or Pale Lightning. In an instant, a thick, crackling lightning bolt surged forth from Kagitsuchi's hand, aimed directly at the incoming Iron Sand shape. The lightning bolt, guided by Kagitsuchi's precision, collided with the solid mass of Iron Sand. With an explosive impact, the bolt pierced through the construct, tearing it asunder. The Iron Sand, no match for the devastating power of Kagitsuchi's attack, disintegrated in the wake of the lightning's passage. Realizing the vulnerability of his ninjutsu against Kagitsuchi's overwhelming assault, the Kazekage swiftly adapted. He swiftly conjured a large sphere made of tightly compacted Iron Sand, forming a protective barrier around himself. Simultaneously, he deftly shifted his position, evading the path of the lightning bolt. He knew that while the sphere could only partially slow down the incoming attack, it would not be enough to completely block it. Despite his efforts, the lightning bolt managed to pierce through the right shoulder of the Kazekage, inflicting a painful wound. The Mizukage infused his sword with water, shaping it into a formidable drill. With lightning speed, he materialized before Kagitsuchi, thrusting his weapon towards his opponent as if attempting a lethal stab. However, Kagitsuchi swiftly countered by driving his cane directly at the Mizukage. The force of the impact not only shattered the water drill, but also devastated the Mizukage's right upper torso. When Reikage and Hokage, who had been healed by Tsunade and the medical team, returned and saw Mizukage's death, they were stunned, as were Inoki and Kazekage, who were unable to comprehend what had just occurred, because Hokage and Reikage, who had been hit by Kagitsuchi, were fine, but Mizukage was killed as if he was some weak genin. And it's not like Mizukage was frail or anything, but it appears that Kagitsuchi purposefully used his full strength to kill him. The first Kage was killed in today's battle, and the rest of the Kages were solemn, because they didn't know when Kagitsuchi would decide to fight them and kill them in an instant. Everyone in the cage looked at each other and nodded. Third Reikage used Lightning Chakra mode, and his hand was covered in black lighting, while Hiruzen used multiple Shadow Clone Jutsu to create 4 Shadow Clones, and Inoki floated in the air, ready to fight Kagitsuchi. Inoki used Earth Release. Earth Corridor first, causing the earth around Kagitsuchi to rise up, creating a cavern, and leaving 2 small openings. Hiruzen used Water Release, exploding water colliding wave in the first opening, and Reikage used Lightning Release. Black Panther and Panther made of black lightning in the second opening that Inoki left, and Kagitsuchi, who was inside the cavern, stood motionless on the ground with a red fiery Ryutsu covering his body, and no water, lighting, or water touched him. And outside the earth cavern, every cage was waiting for the outcome of their combined attack, and Kazekage wasn't standing there doing nothing. He reinforced the outer area of the cavern with his Iron Sand, and by creating a solid shape, he closed the only opening of the cavern. Just as the Kages and all the ninjas were standing there with expectations, the cavern began to shake, and cracks began to appear on it. Kagitsuchi tried his best to reinforce the outer part of the cavern with his iron sand, but it proved useless, and the cavern exploded, and Kagitsuchi was standing in the middle unharmed, with his fiery Ryutsu releasing with full force, and as soon as his Ryutsu spread to the battlefield, the weak ninjas began to fall to the ground, and the majority of them became unconscious. I find myself struggling even to maintain a standing position. What is happening to me? Gasped one of the Awagika ninjas, a tone of bewilderment in his voice. A sense of desperation filled the air as another Kurigaka ninja spoke up. We are unable to withstand the sheer pressure emanating from his aura. How can we possibly hope to defeat him? The overwhelming Ryutsu emitted by Kagitsuchi had an astonishing effect on those who managed to remain on their feet, leaving them in a state of panic, as if their very souls were being commanded to surrender. The sensation was akin to a voice resonating within, compelling them to acknowledge the futility of their efforts. In the midst of the chaos, Nara Shinichi observed the situation calmly, unfazed by the turn of events. This had occurred before in their homeland, Konoha, and he had already taken precautions, surrounding himself with members of the Yamanaka clan. Their exceptional mental strength provided some immunity to Kagitsuchi's formidable aura. Understanding the gravity of the situation, Shinichi gave clear instructions to the Yamanaka clan ninjas: gather all the Nara clan members immediately. This might be our best chance to turn the tide in our favor. Let us not miss this golden opportunity, for it may not come again. The Yamanaka clan ninja responded with a solemn nod, understanding the urgency of the situation. With swift determination, they left to carry out their mission, knowing that time was of the essence. Disappointment tinged Kagitsuchi's voice as he remarked, "Is this truly the best you can do? Despite planning for an entire week and aligning your efforts, the outcome is underwhelming." A heavy sigh escaped Kagitsuchi, his regret evident as he continued, "I had hoped for better. I thought that with ample time, you would devise ingenious plans that could catch me off guard." Upon hearing Kagitsuchi's words, the faces of each Kage turned somber, realizing that their combined efforts were not enough to harm him. His formidable aura alone shattered their attempts to restrain him. In that crucial moment, the Yamanaka clan ninja returned, accompanied by the rest of the Nara clan. Strategically stationed miles away from the battlefield, the Nara clan had anticipated Kagitsuchi's aura's impact, which caused some unfortunate ninjas to faint. They couldn't afford to lose even one ninja's support, as their combined strength was paramount to containing Kagitsuchi. Addressing the other Nara clan members, Nara Shinichi spoke with conviction, "This is a golden opportunity for our clan to become heroes not just in our village, but in the whole world. Let us show the world the indomitable might of the Nara clan. Together, we can rise above this challenge and emerge victorious." With a unified sense of purpose, the Nara clan prepared to face Kagitsuchi once more, driven by their determination to safeguard their village and prove their prowess to the world. "Yes," said the Nara clan, and some of them even started imagining themselves as heroes. Whenever they passed by the streets, the people bowed towards them with respect. Nara Shinichi shattered their imaginations, saying, "Now, let's assemble and remember what we have practiced." As soon as Nara Shinichi's voice fell, every member of the Nara clan started assembling in the planned formation. After everything was ready, Nara Shinichi said, "Now go." As soon as Nara Shinichi's voice fell, the shadows of every Nara clan member extended and started moving in the direction of Kagitsuchi. They touched Kagitsuchi's shadow completely, and many shadows, like thin needles, attached themselves to Kagitsuchi. The Nara clan members used mainly two techniques: the shadow imitation technique to stop Kagitsuchi from moving, and the shadow sewing technique to bind Kagitsuchi from different sides and sew him to the ground, stopping Kagitsuchi. It wasn't like Kagitsuchi didn't observe the Nara clan coming and their movements, but he let them do what they wanted, because he wanted to see them try their best and destroy them at their best. He needed proper obedience after the war, and that could only come when they felt despair. The best way was to let them do their best and fail again and again, and when he showed them his real strength, they would realize how childish they were even to think of fighting him. Kagitsuchi used half of his strength to move his hand, but it was very hard. He was able to move his hand slowly. "Tsuchikage, now is the time. Do it. We can't hold him off for too long," shouted Nara Shinichi. Inoki nodded, flew up in the air, and used dust release. Detachment of the primitive world technique. A massive cube was formed, trapping Kagitsuchi. Every Kage waited in anticipation, and then the sphere inside the cube blasted with a boom. After the dust settled, the cube was empty, with nothing inside but blank space. "No one, is it over just like this?" said Reikage with a sluggish and unbelievable face. A few minutes ago, when they were unable to defeat Kagitsuchi, they were in despair, thinking they were going to lose. But now that Kagitsuchi was no more, it felt kind of unbelievable. Haha, we won, said one of the ninjas. Yay, we won, another shouted. And like this, a wave of happiness ran through the Shinobi alliance. We won. The Nara clan contributed the most, said one of the Nara clan members. The other members of the Nara clan also started cheering, with happy smiles on their faces. Nara Shinichi also nodded and had a proud smile on his face. Hiruzen also smiled because it was due to their Konoha contribution and strategy that they were able to win this war. What made you all laugh? Please tell me the reason so that I can also become happy. As soon as this voice fell, the smiles on everyone's faces became stiff, and they looked stiffly towards the source of the voice. When everyone looked towards the sky, Kagitsuchi was standing there with his crutch, without even a scratch, and with a calm face. In disbelief, Inoki questioned, "How is this even possible? You were clearly trapped inside the cube." Kagitsuchi calmly responded, "Are you certain that you trapped me inside?" "Because I used a move called Kanteni, which allowed me to transfer the space I was standing in from inside the cube to the outside." Hiruzen interjected, "We are absolutely certain that you were trapped inside the cube. How did you manage to leave without breaking the cube's wall? You didn't even use the space movement technique you used when you arrived on the battlefield." Kagitsuchi elaborated, "As I mentioned earlier, it was the Kanteni move that facilitated my escape." Upon hearing Kagitsuchi's explanation, the Kages and other ninjas were left dumbfounded. Such a move was unheard of in their entire lives, leaving them at a loss for words. Before anyone could respond, Kagitsuchi presented an ultimatum. "I'll give you all one more chance. Surrender the tailed beast to me, and I'll stop here. You won't suffer any further damage. However, if you choose to resist, I will fight with my full power." The room fell into silence as everyone contemplated the options. They realized that defeating Kagitsuchi would be an almost impossible task, and the idea of surrender began to take root in their hearts. Then a voice spoke up. It was Chiyo from Sunagya, acknowledging Kagitsuchi's power, but expressing the concern that surrendering all the tailed beasts would grant him control over the entire world. She refused to become slaves to the Uzumaki clan, and chose to fight for her own and Sunagika rights instead. Another jonin from Sunagika declared, "Yes, we will fight for our rights and face the consequences rather than becoming slaves." Another ninja stepped forward, his voice resolute, "For the future of our family and the prosperity of our village, we shall fight you to the very end." Another added, displaying unwavering courage, "Death doesn't scare us. We will fight even if it costs us our lives." A chain reaction followed, with every ninja present raising their voices in unison, "We will fight until our last breath." The respective Kages observed and heard this show of determination from their ninjas. The third Reikage asserted, "You have your answer. We won't surrender, we will fight to our last breath." The third Kazekage echoed the sentiment, "Abandoning the fight is not an option. We shall fight until our last breath." The third Tsuchikage explained, "Handing over the tailed beast would dishonor the sacrifices of our ancestors who founded our village." Hiruzen tightened his grip on his adamantine staff, declaring, "My mentors established this village, and distributed the tailed beast to maintain balance. I will not allow you to disrupt that equilibrium." Kagitsuchi chuckled dismissively, stating, "I may be seen as a villain now, but I care not. My goal is the prosperity of my village and its people, along with peace in the world. This can only be achieved if there's a single ruler to maintain order, not multiple factions fighting and causing chaos and war, which inevitably affects innocent civilians, and kills villagers merely for supplies to support their walls or villages." He continued, reflecting on his earlier show of mercy. "Initially, I wanted to rule with limited animosity toward me or the Uzumaki clan. However, you've reminded me of something I had forgotten. If I allow you to engage in war, you won't hesitate to massacre entire villages full of innocent people, merely because you seek strongholds or supplies to further your conflicts." He concluded with conviction, "But now, I have no reason to hold back. You will witness the full extent of my strength." After Kagitsuchi's voice subsided, he removed his Haori, baring his upper body for all to see. His crutch ignited, emitting an intense heat that caused everyone, including the Kages, to take notice. Slowly, a magnificent katana with a purple handle was revealed, and a fiery Ryutsu emanated from his body, enveloping each of the Kages. Such intense heat. What kind of flames are these? Wondered the Reikage. Gripping the katana's handle, Kagitsuchi whispered, "Reduce all creation to ash." His words were followed by a tremendous release of fire from Raijin Jaka, engulfing the surroundings. The Kages found it difficult to withstand the scorching heat without their chakra coats, prompting them to retreat from Kagitsuchi. The gravity of the situation settled upon the faces of the Kages, fully aware that combating the heat unleashed by Raijin Jaka carelessly would lead to almost instant death. Nara Shinichi urgently called out, Now, use your most potent ninjutsu to create ice. Don't hold back on your chakra if you want to survive. Prompted by Shinichi's instructions, the ninjas from Kurigaka and Sunagaka unleashed their strongest water release techniques, abandoning any reservations about their chakra usage. Simultaneously, the ninjas from Iwagaka employed the earth release, great mud wall technique, creating massive earthen walls to hold the water that the Kurigaka and Sunagaka ninjas were generating. The stored water began to cool down and transform into ice, with the Sunagaka ninjas contributing their own ninjutsu to expedite the process. The battlefield became a scene of intense elemental manipulation as the Ninja Alliance desperately countered Kagitsuchi's overwhelming fire with their most powerful ice and water techniques. Seeing the ninjas of major villages combining their ninjutsu to counter his fire, Kagitsuchi had disdain in his voice. "My fire is not something that you can stop." After saying this, Kagitsuchi waved his sword and a wave of fire was released. As the wave of fire passed over the ice didn't even turn liquid. It didn't convert into water, but was completely evaporated. "Retreat! Leave the area immediately," shouted Nara Shinichi. But how could the ninjas here be faster than Kagitsuchi's fire? Before they could escape the fire after destroying the mud wall completely, the fire covered these ninjas. Oddly, no sound of shouting or cry for help was heard. Everything was quiet, and listening to the quietness, the whole battlefield also became silent. When the fire finally disappeared, there was nothing but ashes of the people who died. "They turned to ashes before they were even able to react to the pain they got," said Nara Shinichi, with fear and horror on his face. "What must be the temperature of the fire to be able to burn those people into ashes within a fraction of seconds?" said the Kazekage with fear. Although we don't know the exact numbers, according to Mito-sama, the temperature of the fire was too much for her even in her Nine-Tails form. The fire was capable of burning even the chakra of the Nine-Tails, and even after combining the amount of her chakra with the Nine-Tails chakra, she wouldn't have been able to fight Uzumaki Kagitsuchi for more than an hour. And according to Mito-sama's experience, the temperature of the fire is almost 6 to 7 times that of normal fire release, said Hiruzen. Hearing this, the face of every cage became solemn because they knew they were unable to fend off such a huge temperature. The best method to defend themselves was to resist such attacks, and then fight accordingly. However, only 2 cages were able to defend themselves and fight at the same time. The third Reikage and the third Kazekage. Even the Kazekage would have difficulty fighting Kagitsuchi, as what he wields is iron sand that can be easily melted by Kagitsuchi's fire. Kagitsuchi didn't care about the horror and fear of the other ninjas. He continued his attack and used a Netsujigoku, Flames of Hell. 8 pillars of flame were erected around different corners of the army, trapping the soldiers inside. Nara Shinichi was also caught within it, and the other ninjas tried to save themselves with water release. But to their horror, they couldn't even conjure water. The Kurigaka ninjas attempted to use Hidden in the Mist technique, but they couldn't activate it even once. The temperature was rising rapidly. "What is this place? It seems like we are standing in a furnace," said one ninja, falling to the ground as his body burned. "I don't want to die. I want to live. Let me live," pleaded another ninja, his unwillingness to die evident in his words. Before he could say more, his body turned to charcoal. Some smart ninjas tried using earth release to create a dome of earth around them, but this proved even more painful, and they died more agonizingly than the other ninjas who were outside in direct contact with the fire. Almost half of the Shinobi Alliance army was trapped in the flames of hell, causing the cages great pain in their hearts. "Why are you attacking our army? If you have guts, then fight us fair and square. Why kill all the weak ninjas from our village?" shouted the third Reikage. Kagitsuchi didn't say anything and remained quiet. Seeing this, the Reikage clenched his fist in frustration. The third Reikage, using his lightning release lightning chakra mode to shield himself from the flames, said with determination, "I'll create an opening for the ninjas inside to let them out." "Don't be foolish, Reikage. The ninjas are a lost cause and can't be saved even if you create an opening for them. Just by coming near the wall of flames, they will die. They are not like us, who can shield themselves," said the Hokage. "Damn it. Then how am I supposed to watch all my subordinates die inside like this?" said the Reikage, with even more intensified chakra around him. "I know exactly what to do," said the Kazekage, determination on his face. With his iron sand wing, he left the place. This didn't escape the perception of Kagitsuchi. He wanted to see what the Kazekage had in mind. After a few minutes, as soon as the fire hell subsided, leaving only charred bodies and molten earth all around, the Kazekage also returned. The Kazekage landed quite close to Kagitsuchi as the fire around Kagitsuchi calmed down. He threw a man at the feet of Kagitsuchi and said, "This is the Jinchuriki of the One Tail, and the One Tail is inside him. I am also willing to withdraw ninjas from Sunagaka. I just request that you let my Sunagaka ninjas leave." The other cages became angry at the Kazekage, and the first to shout was the Reikage. "Have you gone mad, Kazekage? That you are giving your Jinchuriki to the Uzumaki clan? And what about our alliance?" "I haven't gone mad, but rather my eyes are open now. Just think about what we are doing right now, just standing there defending ourselves like turtles. and watching our village ninjas die one by one. We don't have any plan on how to counter any of Uzumaki Kagitsuchi's abilities. So, instead of watching my village ninjas die one by one to extinction, I'm very willing to sacrifice one-tailed beast for other ninjas of my village, and the future of my village, retorted the Kazekage. Just as the Reikage wanted to retort, one more voice was heard. Esteemed fire god, I am an elder of Kurigaka, and am very capable of making decisions on behalf of the Mizukage. We, Kurigaka, are also willing to retreat and surrender the Jinchuriki of both the tailed beasts. The decisions of the Kazekage and Kurigaka elder were also approved by the ninjas of their respective villages, all because of fear of Kagitsuchi and hopelessness to fight against him. These bastards, Reikage clenched his fist after seeing this. But at this time Mabui came near him and said, Reikage-sama, please stop and think with a cool head first. Defeating him is almost impossible for us, and even for you, it is impossible, so please try to understand. Never. I am not going to sacrifice my nephew for this. I will fight with my life on the line. I am not a coward like these two bastards, said the third Reikage, pointing towards the Kazekage and elder of Kurigaka. Seeing the stubbornness on the face of Reikage, Mabui sighed and didn't speak any further, because she knows that Reikage will not listen to her in this matter. At this time, that Tsuchikage was also not going to give up because of the will of stone that he had followed since his childhood, and the first Reikage had taught him this. But at this moment a few elderly-looking people came to Inoki, and one of them stepped forward, saying, Tsuchikage, you have to understand that it is impossible to win against Uzumaki Kagitsuchi. We all suggest that sacrificing the tailed beasts for the well-being of the village isn't a bad option. Inoki looked at them, and anger was clearly visible on his face. You all are saying this when you were the ones who wanted to fight more than anyone, shouting that you all would die, but never surrender the tailed beasts to the Uzumaki clan. At that time, we had confidence that, with the combined strength of the Kages of major villages, Uzumaki Kagitsuchi would surely lose. Not to mention your Keke Tota dust release, on which we had confidence. But even after being hit by your dust release, he wasn't harmed in the slightest, said another elderly-looking person. After listening to this, Inoki fell into deep hesitation and thinking. His thinking was interrupted by the voice of another elderly man. Yes, now is not the time to think much. Before Uzumaki Kagitsuchi goes on another rampage, make a decision quickly, Tsuchikage. Okay, bring both the Jinchurikis to the battlefield, said Inoki. Inoki also realizes that rather than fighting Kagitsuchi blindly, it is best if they give up on time and save their remaining forces, or else Kagitsuchi will go to their village later to destroy it, which he cannot watch as a Tsuchikage. We have already ordered to bring the Jinchurikis to the battlefield. They will reach here any moment, said the elderly man. Inoki clenched his fist in anger as they brought the Jinchuriki without his permission and said, I will deal with all of you later. After saying that, he also went in front of Kagitsuchi and said, we, from Iwagika, are also willing to surrender our tailed beast. Here, only the Hokage and Reikage remained on the battlefield. The Reikage looked towards the Hokage and said, are you also going to give up, Hokage? Although I hate to say it, I don't think we have any option after this. In our hearts, after seeing the battle between Madara and Kagitsuchi, we were clear that defeating him was close to impossible. We had hoped that if we Kages united and fought with Kagitsuchi, giving our all, then there might be a chance to win this battle. But now that 3 of the Kages have already surrendered, and due to some internal matters of the village, I am sorry, but I can't afford more losses in my village, said Hiruzen with an apologetic tone. After saying that, Hiruzen also left, leaving Reikage alone here. Hiruzen stepped forward in front of Kagitsuchi and said, I assume that you have already talked with Mito-sama, and the way she behaved, she had confidence in you that you will not lose. So, I can only say that we, from Konoha, surrender and will not fight you any further. Kagitsuchi nodded, and then he looked towards the Reikage and said, what is your decision? Will you continue fighting me? I will never. Just as the Reikage was about to declare that he would never give up, and would fight Kagitsuchi to his last breath, he was interrupted by a voice. We, from Kumogaka, also surrender. The Reikage looked in the direction of the voice, and saw Bluebee coming towards him. What are you talking about? You don't have to do such a thing. I am not a coward who gives up on my village members, said the Reikage. I know, but you have to understand that if by sacrificing myself, I can save ninjas of Kumogaka, then so be it, replied Bluebee. Looked towards the ninjas of Kumogaka. Do they look like they are willing to sacrifice themselves? They are also unwilling to die here. Hearing this, the Reikage clenched his fist and still didn't want to admit his defeat. He wasn't as saddened that he might lose his nephew as much as he was hurt due to the fact that he had to admit defeat in front of his enemy. You don't have to feel guilt. Remember, the well-being of the village is more important than one person's life, and you, as the Reikage, know this better than me, said Bluebee. The Reikage then looked towards the ninjas of Kumogaka, and they also had hope in their eyes. It was clearly visible that they didn't want to fight either, like the other village ninjas. The Raikage finally sighed, filled with helplessness, and went in front of Kagitsuchi. He said, "I also surrender the tail beast of my village, and am willing to retreat with the rest of my army." As the Raikage spoke those words, the weight of defeat settled heavily upon his shoulders. His decision to surrender the tailed beast was not taken lightly, but he knew it was the best course of action to protect his village and its people from further devastation. And that's the end of this episode. The series will continue in the next part, so be sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, share, and comment down below. This really helps with the YouTube algorithm. Thanks for watching, we'll be seeing you in the next part. Check out these videos right here for more awesome isekai anime content.